I'm Karen Breed, the owner of the Quilter Studio of Loveland, and I'm here to demonstrate how you can use the Deb Tucker wing clipper ruler to make your first 2 rows in the traverse block. I'm going to focus on the actual steps. You will find that we are going to be cutting per the instructions in the Deb Tucker ruler instructions, as well as the handout that we put in with your fabric pack. You will need to cut 4.5-inch squares of your pink fabric, which will become the basis for the first row, as well as 2.5-inch strips of the 2 shades of green. You will find that this method will produce 4 units in a similar fashion to the one that she suggests in her booklet. However, with the wing clipper, we'll be able to trim them down to perfect and have perfect size flying geese units when we're done. You will need to have a marking device. I like to use a fine pencil or a marking pen. Keep in mind when you do your marking, your line may be fat, so you might want to focus on sewing just inside your line when you get to that step. I also like to use the magic wand in order to draw my sewing lines, but I would suggest using a lighter color. Purple's a little dark and hard to see, but these rulers work tremendously. So I'm going to show you the steps. The first step is to take one of the large squares and to place the lighter squares in the corners as you will see them on the table. Her instructions will tell you to set them just slightly inside the edges, leaving a few threads of fabric peeking out. Once you've done that, I do secure them with pins so they don't shift, and you will then lay your magic wand on the square so that the line through the middle is sitting on the points at either end. You then draw your lines on either side of the ruler. These lines will become your sewing lines. Your next step is to actually sew on those 2 lines and then cut the unit into 2 pieces. You will notice these 2 pieces have wings on them. When we get to this point, we can then press them out. I would suggest finger pressing out so that you don't have any bubbles or folds in here, and then pressing securely. At this point, we can add the next 2 squares. We'll be adding a square to each one of the units that were created by first laying it down, having a couple threads showing, and I will always lay it here and just position it. Draw your 2 lines like we did on this one, secure it with a couple of pins, sew down one line and up the other. You will then cut this and have untrimmed units. You will see that the 4 units were created from the original large pink square and the smaller green squares. This is the point at which you actually use the ruler to trim it down to perfect. Have the points pointing at you. You then find the places on the ruler for the unit size we're cutting down to. We are cutting down to 2 by 3.5, and you'll notice I'm placing the ruler so the V is sitting on my sewing lines, but before I make a cut on the right and the top, I'm going to make sure that I will have something to trim off on all of the sides. So I will continually lift it up and reposition it until I'm pleased with how I've got it positioned. I'll have a little tiny sliver to cut here, but once I secure the ruler, I can trim the side and across the top, pardon me, there. Make sure I've trimmed it. Now I will spin it around and now finish trimming by focusing on the 2 clean lines that I just cut and now trimming the other 2 edges. At this point, I now have a perfect flying geese unit. You'll notice in the pattern that you are going to be using 2 shades of green for one row. When you do the other row, the center fabric is a purple color and the other 2 fabrics are a light and a dark blue. You're going to be making a total of, I believe, 96 units, 48 of each of the sets of colorways, and then you'll assemble them into rows. Thank you.